Are some of these Michael Jordan 90s insert parallel cards just overpriced? We are going to debate today. Friends, we have made it to Friday. Stick around. What's going on, sports card hobby family? It's another day. It's another sports card video. We're heading into the weekend. I'm ready for the weekend. I don't know about you all, but my Saints need redemption against the Atlanta Falcons. We lost, sadly, to the Eagles last week at the very last second, and we have got a division rival this week that we need to take care of. We will see how it goes. Before I dive into today's topic, we got our Friday shout-outs card capsule. You want fantastic supplies, but you don't want to pay a fortune, and you deserve 10% off. Use the promo code down below in the video description for Card Capsule waterproof cases, top loaders, all the stuff that you need. It is there at Card Capsule. JustCollect.com. You've got an amazing collection, but you're like, you know what? I need to sell off some of it. Who do you call? JustCollect.com. Leighton Sheldon and the team over there, they've got an easy appraisal form on their website. And Leighton has a great YouTube channel, Just Collect on YouTube, where he's talking through collections that he's found and different stories around those cards and collections. Definitely check out the Just Collect YouTube channel. Also, today we're talking about 90s inserts, and my buddy DPZ is a huge 90s inserts collector for Griffey, for Barry Bonds, and so forth. Check DPZ out on IG. I'm going to be on his show, Pick 6 podcast. That's going to come out tomorrow. I will be on with him. We're going to have a little bit of a debate. We go back and forth a little bit. We don't agree on a couple of these things, so it's going to be fun. Make sure to check out that episode that comes out tomorrow. All right, today we are going to talk specifically about one card in particular, and it is the 1995 Skybox EXL #1 Natural Born Killers Michael Jordan insert card. So before I get started, I'm going to reference a channel that I really enjoy watching. I've been watching a little bit more of it lately because I'm trying to learn more about 90s inserts, and not just Michael Jordan, but just in general, and that is Cajun Cardboard with Brian. I've met Brian a couple different times. I just saw him at this last national, and I'm going to I'm going to debate against some things that I'm seeing, but I'm also going to argue against myself at the end. I'll throw kind of all the different ways to look at this thing, or at least some of the different ways. We like to take a well-rounded approach on the channel, but this is again one of those kind of, you throw it out to viewership and you hear what others have to say, and I really enjoy doing that. Right now, the hottest cards on the market are 90s inserts parallels. A lot of money flowing into not just Michael Jordan, but players all over the place. Everybody is all into Brett Favre and Barry Sanders and Jordan, Griffey, Barry Bonds, you name it. I mean, there's a lot of really, really cool cards. I also want to preface the conversation with, I am not a Michael Jordan card expert at all. Cajun really has done a ton of work. He's got a whole hierarchy of, tier 1. I think he goes tier 1 through tier 4 of important Jordan cards and quotation marks in his opinion. But, you look at it, and if I look at his tier 1, I mean, it's hard to argue. I think the tier 1 stuff is probably the easiest stuff to identify. Then as you get down into kind of tier 2, 3, 4, then it starts to get harder where those cards place and there's movement around and that sort of a thing. But it's very interesting stuff. So I'm really happy that he put that together. I actually have a lot of catching up to do on some of his past stuff. I did watch a video on this particular card I'm going to talk about today, this Natural Born Thrillers. He had, 2 years ago, he did an Explore the Card video that's talking specifically about this set and this particular insert card. And he rated it a 5.5 out of 10 based on, the card's fantastic looking. I think that's the big thing that is a huge draw for 90s cards, are aesthetics. But once he goes beyond aesthetics here, he says, it's not really a rare card, and the importance level just compared to other Jordan cards, it's a very cool card, but he rates it a 5.5 out of 10. This is from his Explore the Card going back a couple of years video. I watched that over the last 24 hours. Now, in his recent video, maybe was yesterday or the day before, this particular card in a PSA 10 grade, and that's where we're really going to focus in on. PSA 10 grade sold for $9,000. Other than the 2020, 2021 crazy pandemic type stuff, it sold for $12,500, I believe was the sale for it. So it's kind of creeping back up to where all the crazy prices were in quotation marks. So now when we're talking about, are Michael Jordan 90s insert parallels, are they overpriced? we have to really differentiate because it's extremely nuanced. Our hobby is extremely nuanced, but especially when we're talking about these particular cards. Because if we're talking about top of the food chain Jordan stuff, like Jordan, when you're talking about PMGs and when you're talking about essential credentials, and there's certain kind of inserts that are very rare, low numbered type stuff, people can really name their asking price on these particular cards. I know of a few different Jordan collectors. Some of them have even, I've mentioned this on a video or a live stream recently, have reached out and said, hey dude, I've got 7 figures of Jordan cards, and as these new ones come up, as these opportunities arise for the rare stuff, I am stockpiling these as store of value. I believe in these as, just great overall cards. Not, of course, you want to collect the cards, but when you're throwing this sort of money in, unless you're Jeff Bezos and $1 million is like whatever, you do care about values. Like values matter, values matter in this sort of thing. We're going to talk here, though, today mainly about opportunity cost, when it comes down to Michael Jordan cards in particular, because I've been focusing more, because there's so much attention on all the 90s inserts parallels. When you go on IG, on YouTube, auction sites, Auction Watch, all this and that and whatever, it's inserts, 90s. I've actually been shifting back to the cards that are in the 80s, and I enjoy those cards. It kind of works out perfectly for me because while aesthetically I do think a lot of these 90s inserts are awesome, I don't need it to be shiny cardboard. I don't need it to be refractorish. I much more prefer kind of early playing days Jordan cards, whatever that is. As the Jordan market has heated up, I've really focused my attention on those cards that I enjoy, kind of those early playing days, 80s cards. They're more affordable, which I think is interesting. Now, of course, it just depends on which cards we're talking about, but in comparison to some of the 90s insert stuff, they are more affordable, a lot of the cards. I'm going to use a direct example of opportunity cost. We've been talking about opportunity cost here on the show quite a bit because look, if you're spending, whether you're spending $500 in our hobby, $1,000, $5,000, in this case, let's say it's $10,000 because that's essentially what this card just sold for, you have a slew of options at $10,000. And in the Michael Jordan market, you do as well. There's a ton of different ways you can go. You can buy volume of cool cards up to $10,000. You're going to buy one kind of higher end card. This one kind of stuck out to me because it's a card that I've been targeting in a PSA 9. But if I'm going to spend $9,000, $10,000, the one that just, when I saw this price point, I'm watching Brian's video, I immediately went to the 85 Nike Promo Jordan in a PSA 10. This card to me just has, a lot of historical importance. Obviously, the promo card for the shoes from 1985. It's early Jordan playing day stuff. It's got a cool image. It is oversized, and I know some people are like, ew, oversized. It's not shiny, and it's oversized. But, it's just an amazingly important historical type card. So if I'm comparing an 85 Nike Promo PSA 10, man, this is such an easy one for me. Like, I would much rather have the Nike promo card over, yes, it's a 90s insert. Yes, it's Michael Jordan, but it's really on the lower level of importance according to the hierarchy and according to Brian, as he had stated. And so when I see a price like this for this particular card, I'm kind of wondering, how does this happen? How does this particular card that's, it's aesthetically beautiful. The Natural Born Thriller's name too, it's a cool name. I get it. It's a cool looking card aesthetically, but there's a ton of cool looking cards. If I'm spending 10 grand, there needs to be more to it than just being a cool looking card. How do we get to this point? And I think a lot of what's happening here, I'm guessing, is this is kind of like the next in line. As people are looking at Jordan insert parallels and they're trying to buy this stuff and they keep on they lose auctions, they keep getting priced out and they're coming down, and then, okay, I won the Natural Born I got a Natural Born Thrillers. I'm in the game. I'm in the game. I got this one. This is a 90s insert. And this is just for me. This is just one guy doing my thing. It might be not popular compared to what many others would do, frankly. But I like to try to run counter to what is kind of the buzz. So much talk on the 90s insert stuff. I still think that there's good value in 90s inserts, but you really got to dig deep. You really got to dive in and get to know all the different stuffs for the player, not even just Jordan. And I would say in our hobby, look, over the last 5 years, there has been a huge movement into Jordan cards, the movement into GOATs, and just where is their value, and we're probably running out of the where is their value part of Jordan. It's like, where's the upside, on some of this? If you're buying in at $10,000 for this particular card, and it might just be that, this is just a cool card that you want to own. Look, there's so many deep pockets that are in this space, especially in this collector world, that it might not really have a whole lot to do with the money. It might be like, hey, this is 9 or 10 grand. I don't really care. I love that card. I love the aesthetics of the card. There's high rollers that play in this game, not just with Michael Jordan, but 90s inserts parallels of Barry Bonds, Ken Griffey Jr., all these different folks. So, it could very well just be that you have just collectors that are like, damn, I just love this card from my childhood and I can get it in a perfect grade in a 10. And yeah, sure, fine. I'll pay 9 grand for it. Now, I watched an interesting podcast to kind of go on the flip side of what I'm talking about, and it's by Precious Metal Gents. And the one guy on there I thought it was really interesting what he said. So he was I can't remember which players they were talking about, but he made the statement of, you know what? It's not necessarily about the players. We're collecting cards. We're collecting cards. So what it sounded like to me is there was more importance being put on what is the history of the set, the brand, the parallels, the inserts. And yes, of course, you've got the big names, whether that be Michael Jordan or whoever kind of that top tier, player was. But, essentially I think they were talking about PMGs in particular and kind of like how it got going and the popularity, the importance of the set and that sort of a thing, how hard it was to get them, all that sort of stuff. But again, those guys weren't necessarily talking about player collecting or the one guy. He was kind of making the statement of, we're putting too much focus around a player when we're not putting enough focus around the brand, the history of the insert, who made it, who designed it. And so that was a really interesting take. And I thought that was kind of interesting because in the case of Michael Jordan, for a lot of collectors, it could be, okay, awesome, I'm player collecting Michael Jordan, but then I also have tons of nostalgia, love, focus around these particular sets because I just love these particular sets. They were hard to get as kids or whatever the case may be. And so that's where there's not as much draw to the 80s stuff. Where for me, it's actually a little bit the other way where I'm not as much focused around, it's 98 metal. It's a particular set because I'm 43. I was wrapping up high school, heading to college as those products were coming out, and maybe people that were younger than me were ripping those packs and looking for PMGs. So that makes more sense. So maybe it's just kind of like an opposite outlook. For me, I prioritize early playing days, 80s stuff for Jordan because I'm like, man, I watched the guy play. Like I was there in 91. I was 10 years old when he won that first title and then watched the march, of him winning 6 titles. Didn't miss a game, didn't miss one of those playoff games, as a kid. I was wearing the Bulls tracksuit to school every day. I had a pair of Air Jordans. I got a pair of the Air Jordan 9s when they came out in 1994. And I was like, how do I remember that? On the underneath the shoe, it's got 1994. There's a lot to love about that. I grew up in the 90s. I grew up late 80s and 90s. So I get the 90s insert thing. I absolutely do. But when it comes to opportunity cost, and I like to talk about this with the community, what makes the most sense? Does kind of a lower tiered 90s insert Jordan card or a Griffey card or a Bonds card or whatever it is, does that make more sense? Let's flip it over to Bonds Griffey. So a lower tiered Bonds Griffey compared to, a Tiffany rookie PSA 10, or whatever, or BGS 10 or whatever. For me, I would rather have the Tiffany. I would rather have some of the early playing day stuff, but that's what I grew up with. That's what I remember. And so to get, the Tiffany version, get it in a high grade, to me, that would be more cool to own than, maybe, a 90s Bonds, lower tier, PSA 10 insert card. Anyway, guys, let me know your thoughts. I know this is something that many of you in the comments have said, I've been buying into 90s inserts. Make sure to check out Cajun Cardboard. Just a great overall channel, giving a lot of education around not just 90s cards. He does cover some of the 80s stuff as well. And it's not just Michael Jordan, mostly Michael Jordan, but also covers Kobe Bryant and some other stuff as well. And overall, just kind of 90s basketball. I think he covers kind of a wide range. He's talking about Jerry Stackhouse and stuff like that. So a good overall channel to learn from. And for me, I'm still learning about the different 90s inserts and that sort of stuff. But for me, this one popped out and I was just like, man, that just feels like a no-brainer. I would definitely rather have a PSA 10 Nike promo Jordan card, 8 from 85, than have this particular Natural Born Thrillers. All right, friends, stay healthy, stay awesome. and I will talk to you again later.